All right. Vincent, how you doing, mate?
I'm great. How are
Good.
you?
Good to see you. Yeah, really
Good to
well.
see
And
you
we'll get
too.
into our little personal story in a second and get the plebs up to speed on how we come to know each other and everything else. Everybody loves learning about that kind of thing and how the rabbit hole story connects us, reconnects humanity. But Lauren wants to go ahead and ask her first question. And I told you the chickens might come around and find this door
And now
open. I can already hear them. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out there. So yeah, we. I was explaining to Vincent, we got the door open because I want to get some fresh air in and some more natural light. Anyway, I said to you, we're going to come and interview Vincent, and you said, "Ah, who's that guy?" I said, "Well, he's the guy that's building a citadel in Portugal." And you said,
What is a citadel?
Okay. By the way, we did actually met. We met in Madeira, like for just a brief moment, but you were busy, like organizing all the kid stuff around Bitcoin. Um, so what is a citadel? Well, when I think of NEOSLIFE, it's not just a Bitcoin citadel, but a citadel is a place where we build our own ecosystem, our own world around, I mean, in the Bitcoin world, around Bitcoin mainly, but it's basically a place of freedom and sanity, I would say, in an insane world where we rethink kind of the rules and how to live life and create a place where we can live, more healthy, fulfilling, beautiful, collaborative, kind of all the things. If you look in the world, all the things that are going wrong, the idea is to kind of reverse them there and create a new world. That's how I think of citadels. And maybe to add, um, citadels, it sounds like a bit like a wall, like you cannot go in. And the way I like to think of it is kind of it's an inviting place. Like it's an inviting place because it's a place where people want to come rather than kind of like keeping what we want to keep outside is all the bad stuff. So in that sense, there's a wall for that kind of stuff that we don't want. Yeah.
"Yeah, we want to repel the negativity." I guess like a medieval citadel would be something like you see it, like the chateaus that we see around here. Yeah, like Castelnau, it's up on
Yeah.
the hill and it's surrounded by a big wall and a big fort. That would be kind of like the first image that would pop into most people's minds when we talk about a citadel, like a walled city.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I didn't give you like the dictionary definition of a citadel. I
yeah,
give you more kind of how Bitcoiners think about a citadel.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a castle, right? Like a protective, like a fort, like something that keeps the enemy outside.
And the enemy would be fiat money. So
Yes.
that's what Bitcoin is talking about. It's a bit of a meme in the space that one day we'll build our own citadels and we can all live, like Vincent said, together in a collaborative manner. But my thought on that is the same as Vincent's. I think that is countrywide. I think that it becomes planet wide. But we have to start small and we have to start waking as many people up as we can, one by one.
Wouldn't the government try and stop it though?
No, I mean the idea is not to fight the government. The idea is to, or at least that's how I think of it, is to, show a better way of life and for people to join and say, oh, we want more of that. It's not like to fight to fight something. And I think generally also when we talk about government, I mean the government is not the problem. It's like certain elements in the government and how certain aspects of the government work. Like um, right, we need some form of creating rules on how to live together. And that's how I think about government, not necessarily as the state or as, the structures we have in place right now, but we need some governing rules. And so the idea is within the Citadel to create our own governing rules as much as we can within the current system, right? It's not about, at least that's how I think about it. It's not, I don't think we win a war by creating more war. I believe we win this game by creating, better rules, and then other people join those rules. But I think it's a great question because yes, of course, when you change things, there will be some people who oppose the change, as always, just like with Bitcoin, right? Some people fight it. A lot of people actually fight it, But what we are seeing increasingly, people come around, and right now with the ETFs, right, like really Wall Street and big finance are joining the game because they're realizing what it is.
So you've been, Lauren, to the Free Cities Foundation Liberty in Our Lifetime conferences for the last 2 years. So you've probably seen a lot of the talks there where they talk about different projects, and you might have some projects that are on the sea. You might have some projects that are on land in Montenegro and other places. These people are just trying to do that same kind of thing. They're trying to live together under some form of contract, which Titus wrote about in his book. But that contract you opt into, like you go in eyes wide open and you have the contract in front of you and you sign it and you pay X amount for the services that would be provided by the people that are building that particular project. Now, the other model is you get born and you have no idea what contract you've signed. In fact, you haven't signed a contract, but you've got to do everything that they say anyway. So what sounds more fair?
First one.
Yeah. And that's what Free Cities are trying to do. And this is the kind of thing that Bitcoiners are becoming to realize, because if we have our own money, we don't need to be slaves to the fiat system anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even more so, right? Like the way Bitcoiners look at it is like the more powerful Bitcoin becomes, the more countries will want those people to come and they will compete. Just like nowadays, some countries compete by having low taxes or being business friendly. So people say, okay, we want Bitcoiners because they bring a lot of, money, but then also many more things, as we evolve, as we are awakening, like a better way of doing things.
Good question.
I think this is just one more thought here. I think this is really what Bitcoin, my own Bitcoin journey has taught me, like, right? And I think all of us that are diving in, like, once you go down that rabbit hole, it opens up a lot of other rabbit holes. And then you realize Bitcoin is much more than a new and better money. It really is kind of, as I like to say, taking the headset off and kind of awakening to what's going on in the world and then questioning how we can do things better.
Cool. Well, thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Bye-bye. Nice to see you.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Right, mate. Okay, let's wow, close the door. Yeah, so just so people are on, up to speed on how we met. We met on Zoom, like many other people did, I suppose, during the lockdowns. I remember mutual friend of ours, Alvaro, wanted to put together he was going down the rabbit hole himself, and he wanted to put together some kind of like learning group. So tweeted out, who would like to join a learning group on, I can't remember what day it was. Maybe it was a Tuesday, it doesn't matter. And I don't know, 6 or 7 people showed up, right? And that was so cool. You were one of them. Eileen, Tim, Josias, the Coach Carbon, he was another. And we just, chewed the fat and talked Bitcoin and got each other up to speed, and fun times. And then you shared with us at that point, I think I was actually late to that call, but you were sharing about a situation that you had faced with trading, and I think this is probably a good place to start, because new people joining Bitcoin right now, they're going to get attracted to the siren song of the technical analysis gurus out there. I just saw a tweet yesterday. This guy, Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, so you respond.
Right. Talking about, I'm going to start loaning my Bitcoin to try and make yield. I mean, it's all happening all over again. And goodness knows how many followers he's got and how many other people might fall into, thinking along these terms. So why don't we back it up and just get the back picture on what you were doing in your career before Bitcoin. Like where did you grow up, and what was your actual fiat job?
Oh, okay. The real beginning. Just a short comment on how we met. Like, I think it's really beautiful, because I was reflecting about it before we met in Madeira, and then recently, and now and for the meetup, and I realized that actually I don't think I ever met Alvaro, who connected me to it, and then I have never met you until we did in person. And it's like the serendipity of these things is incredible nowadays. Like, and then you never know where the train goes. And here we are. And we'll talk about some exciting stuff today. So I started as an investment banker in London, doing mergers and acquisitions for financial institutions. I actually realized, I mean, it's really crazy now that you make me think about it. I was born in Basel, Switzerland, which is the headquarter of what? Of kind of the BIS. And literally the BIS used to be, I don't know where it's now, but used to be across the street from my high school. So I would see that building every single day. Obviously, at that point, I had no idea what it is. I mean, I knew the name, and I think my parents knew some people there, and I've been once in their countryside club outside of Basel. And it was kind of this elusive, you know, powerful thing, but I had no idea. Now, I mean, 4 decades later, I kind of see where its place is in the world. Anyway, and so, yeah, fast forward in my early 20s, I started working for JP Morgan and later Merrill Lynch. And I was with them for 7 years doing mergers and acquisitions for my financial institutions in Europe. And that, I think the thing that I took away from it is learning to work really hard, you know, 100 hours plus, and doing some really cool stuff, taking companies public, you know, when you're 23 and you meet with CEOs of companies, it's really, it's exciting. And interestingly, despite having studied economics and finance and then working in the middle of finance, so to speak, in the city of London, which is interestingly, okay, now I'm jumping around a little, but like there's 3 power centers in the world, right? Like there's Washington, there's London, and there's Vatican City, and they're all states within the state. They have their own laws, their own police force, etc. So in one of these power centers, in the financial one, I had my start, and even after that career, I didn't actually realize how money and finance really worked, even though I was in the middle of the system. And I think this is kind of reflective of the whole world. Some of us, no matter how high we make it, until we kind of get outside of the system, we don't see what it really is. We're kind of inside the beast. And only much later, I realized really, how it all works.
It's so true. I spent 18 years brokering foreign exchange. I saw the demise of all of the European currencies that went to zero, fiat currencies. Currencies such as the Deutschmark, which was the strongest currency pair against the dollar. That pair was the strongest by, you know, magnitudes. The French franc.
Yeah, or I mean, even I was watching The Crown the other day.
Right.
I think it's really an interesting, like, historic way. And the dollar to the pound to the dollar was 1 to 4. Like now it's kind of 1 to 1.2. Like, right. So it's like, and we all know as Bitcoiners that the dollar itself lost, I don't know, 98% of its value over the last 100 years. So it's, you know, and then the currencies versus the dollar even more so. So it's really all becoming worthless. And I was just thinking the other day with kind of, you know, when people talk about, oh, I'm a millionaire, or there's a millionaire, or I have a unicorn company, i.e. $1 billion value company, it doesn't mean anything, because the devaluation, right, we have these money has 3 purposes, like store of value, means of exchange, and unit of account. And the last one is the least talked about, but it means kind of can be measured, like what is a million? But a million is not what it was a year ago, even nowadays. It's really crazy. And I think that's really the beautiful thing about when we go through adversity, as in this case, you know, very painful financial adversity as a result of COVID accelerated, but it is also a huge wake up to what's going on. And so more and more people are questioning it, and therefore are, you know, understanding there's something wrong with it. And luckily these days we have a solution.
I just tweeted out this morning the front page, the classic front page of the Times, you know, 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. And I love at the bottom there, it says 99p a pint, and there's a little paragraph about how beer is 99p. This was 2009. 2009. that's yesterday, man. Like, I mean, come on, like this isn't 99 pence. And you think about, right, okay, I could have gone out to meet my friends in a pub with £5 in my pocket, had 5 pints, and that would have been way more, probably one too many for my liking, and come home with change in my pocket.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, and I think obviously because of COVID and all the money that has been printed, because everything has been shut down, because I mean, you can, it's like really, it has accelerated hugely, right, over the last years. And I was just in a Starbucks the other day, and I don't go there that often, but I bought a coffee or a matcha and something to eat, and it was like 9.50, and I'm in Portugal, which is, you know, not the center of London, and it was €9.50, and I was like, that's crazy. Like it's crazy, and it really is. Yeah, it's shocking, and obviously many people are suffering profoundly. And I mean, not only has our money become worth less, and therefore also our, you know, when people have a job, the pay is less, the real pay is much less. But at the same time, now we face ourselves with AI, which is an incredible technology, no doubt. And obviously, we're using it all ourselves. But AI and robots, and I really see that we all going to become redundant, i.e., or at least not, we are not needed anymore. And Harari calls it the useless class. And in a way, it could be a utopian world, because suddenly, I mean, everything is taken care of because the unit economics are so good that it costs nothing. The AI can do it for near free, and the robot, you only need to buy it once. But what will happen is, because of the system we're in, the opposite. A few people will own all these resources and have all the control and the power. And so then there's suddenly, I don't know, 7 point something billion people that are just not needed. And what happens to them? And then they obviously have to be taken care somehow. So they will get some form of universal basic income. And then that will be coupled together with the CBDC, central bank digital currency, conditional upon you getting whatever, a vaccine or whatever it is. And it's so, I don't want to paint a dystopian picture, but that path is so clear. Like if you look at history and look at human behavior and what's going on. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it could very likely happen. And we're on the path towards that. And when we look at what Western governments do, then it kind of points into that direction also. However, and I hope we get a chance to speak about that today as well, is like there's another path. And that's the path I'm really excited about. And Bitcoin is one element of that, because it makes us see how we're lost in the financial system, or how corrupt the financial system has always been. And now we just see it a lot more because of all the money printing that has been going on. So in a way, all the bad stuff that's happening is just accelerating our, what I call, awakening, which has nothing to do with woke. It's actually opposite. That's also like, I find also something extremely interesting when you look at how bills, especially in the US, are named. They often are named the exact opposite of what they are. So this confusion of naming things. And anyway, okay,
well,
I'm gonna
that's what clown world is, isn't it? You know, it completely inverse. Like, no,
and you don't really, I mean, I'm sure we both know plenty of people that are very smart. Actually, I realized that, you know, intelligence can often be a downside in these circumstances. I mean, we all know this, or at least I think most of us know this kind of graph of the, you know, normal distribution. And on one, you have the genius on the right side, which on one tail, and then the other tail, you have kind of the really stupid person. They both get it, but, you know, all the intelligent people in the middle don't, because they're so, again, just as I said earlier, I was trapped in the system and I didn't see it for what it is, because we all, and before we went on recording, right, you talked about friends of yours and how they're feeling trapped, their kids feeling trapped in the educational system and how it's indoctrinating, but you only see it kind of once you, kind of step out of it, or once it gets extremely bad. I think these are the, and so in this, we are as a whole society in this process of waking up to what's going on. And in a way, it's a blessing, although it's not, but you know, the worse things get, the more we are forced to question things.
For sure, man. And I've talked about this before, but it's like the 7 stages of grief, right? Shock. First of all, shock. It's like, huh? Like what is going on? This, you know, what the hell? And then denial. But so many people are just stuck at denial because no, the education system can't be hurting my kids. No, of course not. What are you talking about? Like, no way. Or no, there's no way in the world that you know, fiat currencies are actually designed to rob my purchasing power over my lifetime and leave me with nothing come the end of it, and then inheritance tax and whatever else for anybody. Like, no, absolutely. People get stuck at this denial stage for a very, very long time. And I remember,
and why is that? Because it's incredible, right? Like it took, like it's just the extent of it is just, it's unbelievable, but it's true.
It is completely unbelievable. You don't want to see the darkness, I think. You don't want to face up to that. Like, my whole life, wait a minute, my whole life has been, you know, designed by this invisible guiding hand, and, you know, the money that we are all forced to use to express value and communicate with each other has been co-opted and has been since 1913. And like, what? And then 1971 happened, you know, breaking away from the gold standard, in air quotes, because it wasn't even really a full-on gold standard by that time.
You know, and what I and you can basically track back these things, and it's I don't think it's just you don't want to see the darkness. It's also, it's so unbelievable given everything we learned, right? Because we get indoctrinated literally from school. Again, school, it starts there.
Yep.
And in a way, it starts even with our parents, because they don't know any better. So they teach us what they know. Then we get into school. In front of the school, there's an authority figure. There's a message in that. There's someone who tells you how it is, right? It's not about critical thinking. It's about there's someone who tells you. And why is there similarities between school buses and prison buses? And, you know, especially in the US. And so you start seeing all of these things, and it's really, yeah, it's really, it's so unbelievable. You have to be willing to question everything, and then you can start seeing for what it is. And to the point, you know, it's when the Fed was instituted, or central banking, like there were a lot of critics that didn't want that, because I think they realized what had happened. And I just recently saw that they were all on the Titanic. And, you know, and the Titanic, who was it owned by? Amongst others, I think JP Morgan. And so it wasn't an accident. Like,
who didn't sail that day?
Sorry?
Who did not sail that day?
Yeah, who did not sail, and also who, I think he also owned it. So
he did own it.
It's
he
just
owned
follow the money.
Cunard, was it Cunard or another shipping? But anyway, he owned the shipping company. But not only did he not sail that day when he was supposed to, because why wouldn't you sail on the inaugural sailing of just the most incredible ship?
And with all the powerful people
ever built. Yeah, with yeah, man. And then you dig into the other people that didn't sail that day. There's like 11 or 12 famous people that also missed the sailing of that ship. And one of the most interesting ones is Edgar Selwyn, who went on to eventually get across there, and he founded MGM Studios. You're like, oh, right, okay. So I think he had a sore throat. So some like ridiculous excuse to not sail on the most prestigious thing that you could ever have hoped to be a part of. And then you get across there and then build like the most incredible propaganda machine, you know, based out of
exactly.
Hollywood.
I was just about to say Hollywood is also such an interesting, right? If you watch all the movies, the subliminal messaging that's kind of in there or in between the lines, but then also so much is so explicit. Like, you know, some of my favorite movies, Matrix, Inception, they're reflections of the truth, right? And it's not even that encoded. It's not literally, you know, we're not plugged into a machine, but it's pretty clear. And also the Truman Show, like We're like, I wrote a recent article called Taking the Headset Off. And the way I look at it is there's kind of the illusion of what we are presented with, like indoctrinated into, educated into. And then there's the higher level illusion, which is human life, which I'm a spiritual being and I'm experiencing life through a body, which is a virtual reality because it's a temporary experience. So my body is basically the headset or the avatar. Avatar is also such a movie. It's also like, yeah, we're in an avatar. Wow. Okay, we are branching out in a lot of directions.
Yeah, we are, man. We are. But there's an interesting thing on the movies because I was asked recently by Pierre Corbin and his team over at the Bitcoin Film Fest, and they're hosting the European Halving Party in Warsaw in Poland. The 19th to 21st of April. And if you use the code BITTEN, anybody listening, you'll get 15% off. Tickets are already very well priced. But anyway, it's going to be a 3-day event, going to be very cool. We're, fingers crossed, we're going to get there. So they asked me to write an article, pretty short, like don't do anything crazy, about, Bitcoin and the arts and culture and this, that, and the other thing. So I wanted to tie it in with film and the Lascaux Caves here, which are very close to where we live and where Pierre and I, we had a great dinner close by because he was visiting the region. So I just wanted to make a little personal piece. And man, within 5 minutes, I'm in a rabbit hole. I'm like, what the hell? How did this happen? Because I wanted to find the first ever, moving picture. Like, who was that credited to? I didn't know. And I wanted to tie all of these loose ends together. And the first one was about credited to somebody that took pictures of a moving horse, galloping horse, that just fired off photographs as it, galloped past them. But that wouldn't be classed as actual cinematography. That was given to a French inventor who was living in London at the time called Louis Le Prince. So, boom, same surname as me, Prince. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I'll learn about this guy. And 2 or 3 seconds, that's all it is the first known moving picture known as actual cinematography movie. Boom. Incredible invention, founded in 1888 or something like that. People just think, wow, this is going to change the world. So Le Prince was all lined up to go across to the US in 1889 to go and showcase this brand new invention until he disappeared. I'm like, what? No way. Hang on. Did he pull a Satoshi because he realized the power of what he just invented? Or was he disappeared because of the power of the medium of messaging that he had invented? Because nothing is more important than the moving picture on the great big screen to get across a message and mesmerize. I mean, that time as well, think about it, how mesmerizing that would have been. Moving color pictures, movies, storytelling. Wow. So I didn't dig any deeper than that. That I think the movie script is writing itself. Somebody else can dig into that if they want. But all of these things, man, like you find yourself...
that just brings me to, and let's just use the term conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Like what I learned, and just to, give some background, like I used to be a rational, banker, number-driven atheist, and, reading the newspaper and watch television, television. It's also interesting.
It's also
every
called,
day.
It's also called programming for a reason.
Exactly.
Right?
Television.
Program.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that. And, I guess I have to call myself a conspiracy theorist now, even though I think it's completely wrong it's a misnomer. And it's also apparently created, that term, by the CIA with the very purpose of shutting you down the moment you say, and it happens all the time. And that is part of the kind of illusion we're in, that we letting ourselves be, that people are labeling, and then that ends the conversation. And therefore we can never have, actually, let me jump quickly to illustrate something. Like the other day, I was watching an interview that Tucker Carlson was doing, who I never thought I would ever watch in my life, not too many years ago, with what's his name, Chris Cuomo, the CNN anchor. And I mean, they're enemies in a way, politically speaking, on news anchor-wise speaking. And they had a conversation, a friendly conversation where they disagreed on things. And that's what we should have, not labeling things as conspiracy theory, because it disallows the conversation that we need to have. I'm not claiming that I have all the answers or that I, have the truth, but I want to have a conversation around it. And as long as we label things like with conspiracy theories, then we can't. And it's important. And that's what the very system does. It kind of shuts us down. And so what I found is going from, oh, this is all like theories and this is all nonsense. It doesn't make, like, I went down all the rabbit holes, or not all, but many. And what you do, what happens when you do is that you find that many, if not most, if not nearly all of those things are actually true. And there's a reason why these theories are out there, because they're very much connected to reality. And everybody has to, what I also realized in a journey, because it breaks through lines of friendships and family. And I think this is the hard part as well with, the Bitcoin rabbit hole, as well as all these other education, all these topics, is that when you start realizing that things are differently, you will lose a lot of friends that are not, agreeing with that. And it can go even through your own family, and it can lead to divorce. And all, I mean, crazy things have happened, right? And so that's a very difficult step to take. And so it's easier to keep, believing the things that you've always believed. It's more convenient, it's easier, and so I have full sympathy for that. So everybody by themselves needs to decide how far and how deep they want to go. But once you go down, it's a one-way street, because you realize in the process how things work, or rather how they don't work. And and I think it's something we need to very gently, rather than fighting each other, like invite to, and hopefully, our conversation can contribute to that, and then reframe things. They're not, they are actually, they are conspiracies, because it also makes perfect sense. And maybe conspiracies, we need to find a new name that is kind of more acceptable, but there are people conspiring and systems conspiring, because that game it's the oldest game in the world. It's about power and control. And we as humans, especially when we're less evolved, we want to grab as much power and control. It's a survival mechanism, kind of an overstretched survival mechanism. More resources as a man, give me more women, give me more procreation possibilities, right? It's what kings have done since ever. And why would it be any different? And there's this beautiful is the wrong word, but very powerful 50-minute documentary, I think, I don't know, from the 70s or so, called The Story of Your Enslavement. And it basically, it's incredible. And we should link to it in the show notes, because it's so powerful.
The story of human enslavement, yeah?
No, of your enslavement.
Okay,
yeah,
the story of your, right, okay.
Enslavement. And it's I mean, it's 40 years ago, but it kind of shows what's happening now very clearly. Well, it's always been happening, but it shows the indoctrination in all of the systems and how we're just cattle. And I think the powerful point it makes is that we in the West, of course, I much rather live where we live rather than in China. But effectively, we're also, when you think, as Alan Watts said, it's one thing to know you're behind prison bars. It's another thing to think you're free when you're not. And so that's why also the economies, the freer economies, the so-called democracies, are much more successful, because we can do our own things within the parameters of the system. And now we're actually seeing the prison bars. This system has also prison bars, and they're getting closer and closer. And that's part of the waking up process. But what this video, to get back to the point, really powerfully shows is that we are all kind of cattle. We're just the free cattle. Like a farmer, is just more productive because it's free and happier, but it's still cattle, and it's still in a fenced in.
Denial.
Just that the fence is a lot wider.
Denial, right? If we, a lot of people listening to this, if they're not come up against these kind of thoughts before, that's where we'll go back to denial. Like, no, there's no way in the world they'd put fluoride in our water, or there's no way in the world they'd spray things above, like into the clouds to make it rain or to reflect the sunlight, or there's nowhere in the world that they would affect the like the seed oils. Like, there's no way that they would purposely harm us with all of these kind. It's very difficult.
And yeah, it's very difficult because it's everywhere and everything. It's really kind of crazy. And I have so many friends that I would call, rather conscious compared to the average population, but they're still in denial of these things. And so it really, I recognize this is in a way, I've been on this journey for 10 years. And then just like COVID, things accelerated over the last couple of years. But it took me a lot of coming around and a lot of support, with people I'm working with.
Let's get to that point, because there you are. You're like 25. You're working 80 to 100 hours a week. You're in London. You're earning a good wage. You got your Gucci loafers, and everything's good.
I didn't have
right?
those, but anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
nice shoes.
Yeah, but yeah. But I guarantee you, some of your colleagues and peers did, because I remember those coming in. That was like part of the uniform. And you're going out in your spare time, and you've probably got a corporate credit card, and you can go to the best bars and drink the best martinis and whatever, right?
Yes.
Why change that, man? That sounds like a pretty sweet life. What was creeping in subconsciously? Why did you leave all of that? And at what point did you find Bitcoin? Because you wouldn't have had time to do the study. Like, your time was the firm's time.
Yeah. So I didn't find Bitcoin at that time because I'm now 45 and I left investment banking in 2009, actually just after the financial crisis. And literally, actually, I have to check the dates. I don't know. It wasn't literally, it was January 2009. So when Bitcoin actually went live, I think Bitcoin was the 3rd of January, right?
Yeah.
And I think I left, funny, I never thought about this. Another like synchronicity. I think I left on the 21st. 21. I need to check the date, but maybe I was told, because I was fired actually from Merrill Lynch.
Okay, but why?
I think it was,
like, what was that?
Yeah, that was also interesting. What I found in hindsight, I was actually happy being fired. It doesn't sound believable, but anyway, just to make the other point quickly, I found that in life that I've been kind of forced to move on over and over again, and it was all for my journey. It was needed for me to go to the next step, not necessarily career-wise, but evolution-wise. So this was one of my first experiences like that, and it was like for the last 2 years of that career, I had a new boss, and he didn't like me, I didn't like him, so that was already not good. It didn't flow. I was micromanaged when I was someone who kind of liked to, be able to take on a lot of responsibilities, which I've given by my previous boss. But then also I kind of was like, is this it? There must be something more exciting. So I had already been interviewing for the last 2 years, even had offers internally and externally, but then the financial crisis happened. And so that all kind of collapsed. And I kind of started kind of doing a minimal, like I went from like working the 100 hours to like, get me out of here on Friday afternoon and take a flight and go somewhere for the weekend. And that doesn't really bode well with investment banking. But what I realized along my journey is like, I'm either 120% in or I'm out. And when you take my motivation away, which had happened here in the circumstances, I kind of just started doing the minimum. And then one day it was funny because the firing didn't happen for many rounds. There were many rounds of firing, 2008 and 9. And I think it caught me in the 5th. And I remember walking out of the building close to St. Paul's and calling my mom and says, okay, it happened finally. And I was happy because I was free. I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't have another option yet. So I kind of stuck around. And then, so anyway, where did that lead me to Bitcoin? So then I was like, okay, now I can do what I want. So one possibility would have been to stay in finance. And I had I was about to have an offer to stay on in a different setup with more responsibility, or I was thinking to do something completely different. And I was just turning 30. And I was like, okay, this is the opportunity. I need to do something completely different. You know, later on, I might have family and kids and things get more complicated. Let me do this now. And so I said, okay, it's a financial crisis globally. Where are opportunities? And I was like, okay, let's go to an emerging market. And so I looked at the BRICS and I said, okay, let's do something entrepreneurial, which will take a couple of years. So where do you want to spend the next couple of years? And I was looking at the BRICS and I felt like, okay, Brazil sounds kind of the nicest one for me personally. I mean, I think all of these countries are very interesting, but to live there, so anyway, I just packed bags, and a few months later, I was in Brazil with a one-way ticket, not knowing what I was doing, not speaking the language. I mean, in hindsight, it was a crazy idea. If I would have known what I got into, I probably wouldn't have done it. But anyway.
Come on, man. You got to tell us now. Like what goes down in Brazil? Like you turn up with a suitcase. Like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah, I mean,
anyone hiring? Like I can't speak
no,
Portuguese.
Obviously I had some connections, and then in Brazil is a very social country, so you meet some people, and then you're a gringo in Sao Paulo, like a newly arrived. At least at that time, everybody wanted a piece of you. They were all curious. So socially, I very much quickly got into things. And then at the same time, I was just researching. I was looking, what could be interesting. I was learning the language. I was giving myself some time. But I was also super stressed because I didn't know, what am I doing actually with my life? And I've just given up my career, so to speak, and a really good salary. And bonuses and all the stuff, the perks. And but it was like finding myself. It was part of this theme that much later, much more powerfully emerged, finding myself. Anyway, fast forward, I ended up starting a company with Rocket Internet. They were doing all these clones, and we were doing the kind of Zappos clone, fast fashion e-commerce. Then I did some consulting, and then I started my own startup, which was insurance. Again, just through someone I met through a common friend. We have looked at the market. We thought it's a big opportunity. I mean, I'm going really fast now, but we started working on it. We put our own money. It was really hard raising money in Brazil at that time, 2010, 11. And yeah, and then we actually we raised from angels. We nearly went, run out of money many times. I got really sick because of stress. Then finally we got a big investment from a private equity fund in the US, and which has had infinite money. So we're like, okay, we're done, like in a good way, right? And then my partner and I had a falling out. The moment we had money, we didn't agree on strategy anymore and the way how to run a business. And it was really nasty. I got pushed out in a way of the business again. Yeah, interestingly, right? There's a theme, and it's a really powerful theme. What was my point? Yeah, getting pushed out. And the irony of the whole thing is because I saw the business was collapsing, and I tried to warn, but it was like him against me. In the end, I got bought out, and I was the only one who made money because the business collapsed and the investor pulled out, and then my fellow co-founder was with nothing and the business, but it was worthless. So, anyway, what I learned in this process, not at that point yet, but in hindsight, is that, I'm a really powerful manifester, like building stuff, but somehow I'm doing something wrong because I was out there. But and I think this is, now I'm really fast forwarding to, because no, let me go step by step. So I find myself outside again, and I decided to leave Brazil. I had been 6 years in Brazil, enough, and I moved to New York. I did a coding boot camp there to learn, to code. I was just curious to learn something new. That's also a theme throughout my life: learning. And every morning I woke up, and I was planning to do another startup. I thought, okay, I've done 1.5 now. I can do this. Now I know what not to do. And in the US, it's much easier to start a company, obviously. And so anyway, I was in New York doing this boot camp. But every morning I was asking myself, why did this happen? what is life about? What was I doing in Brazil? Why was I starting a company? Who am I? What's the purpose of life? Really, these existential questions. And every morning, that's how I woke up. And I realized I had no answers to any of these questions. And no one I knew had answers to these questions. So I suddenly saw that we're all like, to use like chickens running around after something without really knowing why we're doing it. And so instead of starting a new business, I had a couple of ideas, but I was like, I cannot start something without knowing why am I doing it. And so that kind of led me onto the journey of the last, so that was beginning of 2000, end of 2014, so 10 years ago, that put me on this journey of seeking, as I call it, like seeking the truth, like of who I am, what I'm doing, what life is, how it works. And wow, what an incredible journey. Like, I mean, not only did it bring me to Bitcoin, but deep into spirituality, exploring all psychedelics, even doing my own psychedelic retreats. And ultimately now building this land, which we started, like the Citadel, so to speak, like in Portugal, for a life, for a better way of being. So it's incredible. Like what it taught me is that, whatever I thought, or generally said, whatever we think that is true or how things work, it's just what we believe until we really question and tested it. And that's a lot of work. Like I had the luxury that because of that buyout of the company and some money I made before, I could keep going. And then I discovered Bitcoin, which also, financed part of the journey. And so I could keep going without needing to go to an office. And I was just eating into my savings and often very scared because everybody's building careers, everybody's building stuff. And I felt like I'm goofing around in the world trying to figure things out.
And
but
alone.
now alone, by myself, no family still. I'm 45 now. But finally, I mean, now in hindsight, I understood it was all part. And, that is kind of a message I would also like to leave the listeners to, like, wherever you are at and whatever is going on, you're exactly where you need to be. It's all part of a bigger unfoldment. And when we can find peace within that and follow our intuition, then life can really start to work for us. I mean, it always works for us, but when we're hitting road bumps, it means, hey, we're off path, get back on the path. And it's our job in life to see that path. And a really powerful way to recognize it is kind of intuition, where we are pulled to, what excites us. And for me, it was always this theme of, I need to understand. And so for the last, I would say, 8 years of this journey, it was really understanding, and, intellectually, like really taking everything apart, like including spirituality. And then the last 2 years, I realized, okay, understanding is really powerful, but that's to put it in a biblical context, because all these spiritual texts, the sacred texts, they're actually profoundly insightful texts. Whether you or not you believe in God, they're like instruction manuals for life. And to put it in that context, like I was eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is where we all we want to have the answer. What I realize is what we really need to do is we kind of need to be it, right? So I might understand everything. I might be able to advise everyone how to do it well, but I'm actually not embodying it. And so, I mean, I just made a huge
Yeah, no, I got
I don't know whether I lost you, but
no, I got a ton of questions. Let me pick up on a few. Okay. And I think a great one would be, and a very practical question for people listening. You mentioned road bumps. How do they present themselves, do you think? How should people like be able to recognize a road bump? It could be like
pain,
right?
Pain and all kinds of pain, right? I'm not talking, including physical pain, actually. Like, again, I will say something very controversial for many,
please,
but I invite them to look into it. Physical disease is also a reflection of where we are in our journey, including forms of, cancer or all other things. And it's really hard to say. And people, and it's not about blame or so, but it's about recognizing. For us to find freedom and clarity on our journey, we need to switch out of victim and into, creatorship. And that means taking full responsibility. And the diseases we acquire, whatever it is, they're messages from the body on our journey. Because, and now I'm branching out, but we're spiritual beings that are, having a physical experience. And when we're in dissonance with ourselves, with the journey of who we are, which is, some people call it soul, scientifically you call it consciousness, the consciousness we are. When we are in this alignment with that journey, then the body starts breaking down. It's like putting the wrong gas into the car or not maintaining it well. And then that expresses itself through disease. And the incredible thing, again, what we're taught wrongly is things like cancer, they can heal completely. And chemotherapy is like putting a nuclear bomb into a body, right? So anyway, all of these are messages, and then it's just for us to understand what does the message mean. And in the case, for example, of disease or cancer specifically, wherever that disease pops up in the body is directly related to the issue I'm facing, the conflict I haven't resolved within myself. It's largely emotional, unresolved conflicts. And most of this stuff stems from childhood trauma. Like if you look at, to take an extreme, and Gabo Mate has done it wonderfully and documented it in one of his movies. He's a trauma specialist. If you look at the population in prisons, they all come from broken families, all. So whether you, and it's interesting, whether you someone, if you're completely unsuccessful in life, or you're very successful in life, or you're in prison, is a degree of your trauma, how much trauma you endured as a child. If you endured a lot of trauma, like, criminal, like beating up and abuse and rape or whatever in the family, then you will become a criminal, most likely, because you can't deal with it. Less traumatized means you will likely be very successful because you endured some hardship and you're trying to prove them wrong. So a lot of actually the people in top are sociopaths or even psychopaths that are running the world. And they are at the top because they're ready to walk over dead bodies, because they have been traumatized and they have developed a survival desire. And then there's the rest of us, luckily, I think the majority, but and we are all traumatized, but to lesser degrees. And how did I get there now? So pain is really our teacher in life, and I'm not endorsing pain. It's just part of life. Suffering is optional. I think this is an important differentiation, because pain is something that happens. Like, I put a knife in your arm, you will feel pain, or you do it yourself. I don't have to do it. And also, you have a breakup, you go through a divorce, you lose all your money. All of these, or you get kicked out of a company. Like, this was painful for me, but they're all teachers. Like, our job is not to deny or push away or suppress or ignore the pain. It's to face it and see it for what it is, because it's there. I cannot run away from it. It already happened. And then see the lesson in it, and then not have to go through it again. Like, the biggest message is in life when we keep bumping our head against the same wall over and over again in different situations, maybe in relationships over and over again, or we keep losing our money, or we keep being ignored, or whatever or we keep getting sick, then that's a message, I'm not learning my lesson. And so I'm repeating it. And actually, I studied with an incredible doctor. His name is Nader Butto, who has done incredible work. He's by training a cardiologist, so classical medical training, but then he went on a decades-long exploration because he was looking like, where's the soul in the body? Where's the soul? And now he created this really scientific way of combining mind, body, and spirit, because they're all connected. So a lot of the stuff that I shared now, people might say, oh, this is, just I made this up or I read it somewhere. No, but we really know how this works, because there are cases how complete cancer remission, etc. There are, these miraculous healings. And then you put it together with people coming back from near-death experiences and what they tell you. And also through my psychedelic experiences, like the one lesson I took away from that, because I experienced myself as a bodiless person, or a person without a body. And when you have gone through that experience, you suddenly understand this oneness that spiritual texts talk about, because it's real. Like, we're all consciousness experiencing itself through a limited body and mind. And you can experience it without that body and mind. And once you have, there's different ways. There's psychedelics, there's deep meditation, extremely deep, of course, and advanced meditation. There's breath work, and there are near-death experiences. And they all point to the same truth. Anyway,
Wow.
I'm going to take a break here. It's
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I want to bring a book in. I was recommended to read by a fellow pleb. You might have met him in Madeira, Rick. He put me onto John Sarno's work, and TMS, tension myositis syndrome, and all about everything you've been talking about. And Robert Brin did as well. You should have a conversation with him. He wrote the book Decentralized Mind. And they're very much into everything being linked to trauma, as is Dr. Gabor Mate. And another one people should check out is his book, Hold On to Your Kids. Because like you said, we've all been through trauma. And that starts at birth with literally with modern day birthing practices is, complete disassociation from the very minute that the baby is born from the mother. And that trauma will manifest itself. Anyway, another deep rabbit hole.
I mean, just to I think this is exactly, it starts even before birth, because if the mom is in a stressful environment, you already picked that up. And then the birthing process is one of the most traumatizing experiences. Actually, what's his name? Who did all the Stanislav Grof showed that and did incredible studies. And you can re-experience it. That's what I was referring to through breath work. Like, you can go through experiences even without any psychedelics, without needing to die, just through changing your breathing. You can go through these experiences and relive actually your birth. And there's an amazing, we should also link to that, an amazing documentary. I think it's called The Way of the Psychonaut. I'll get you the link. I mean, there's so many incredible things to open our eyes.
Yes, exactly. And then just on the modern day birthing practices, and if you just link that all the way back to what we were talking earlier about conspiracy theories, why do you think Bill Gates and his foundation are investing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into updating the birthing practices on the continent of Africa? Like, you're like, right, okay, pal. Whose father was exactly. Whose father was on the board of the Planned Parenthood Association alongside Margaret Sanger. Yeah, it's so simple to
being a major eugenist. So yeah, it's
like a raging eugenicist, absolute raging
eugenicist.
This idea that everything is linked to trauma, and it could be anything.
Maybe just pain. One more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because now you brought up Bill Gates, and that's also one of these big eye openers. Like, there's this person which is extremely wealthy, extremely influential, and we look at it, when you look at his practices as Microsoft, it was very aggressive, right? He even got what is it called, the anti-competitive he had this case I think it was in the 90s or early 2000s.
Yep.
So anyway,
have you seen that interview of him being interrogated?
Yeah.
He just sits there rocking back and forth. Yeah. It's like, wow, if anybody has not seen that, just go and look at like the kind of guy that this person actually is. Because like you said earlier, psychopath or sociopath, all mixed in. I don't know the difference between the two, to be honest, but it ain't good. It's not a good personality to have.
Yeah, and it's, I believe we can all change, we can all heal. And so, but looking at his case specifically, and now there's this guy who was having one of the most brutal business techniques and developed one of the largest companies. And then he suddenly becomes the healer of the world and the savior of the world. And, again, I think people can really change. But once you dig in here, what you see is he just took all his money, put it in a foundation where they're extremely intransparent. They also are tax-free. And now he has just a very powerful lever to control the world indirectly through that. And it's a much more clever way. And actually, many people are doing that. It's not just him. It's also Soros. And I mean, we're getting into some really dark places here. But the interesting thing is, also when we look at Corona, like he says it even explicitly. He says his investment in Moderna was his best investment ever. And I mean, Bill Gates, he must have done many very good investments. So that just tells you something. And there's this guy who not only has driven the kind of mRNA and invested into Moderna, whose only product ever is actually the vaccine that kind of come out of nowhere very quickly. But also he is the major contributor to the WHO, who made all the policies where all the countries synced up, which is also really strange. I mean, most of the countries, 99%. So there's a guy, and there's such a blatant conflict of interest.
It's so blatant. And one last point to, like, if you look into the BBC even released this, it's like, you know, where does our money come from for like one of their charity arms or something like that. And like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was like a huge percentage of the money that gets sent to the BBC. So you control the narrative as well. And like, you know, it's so boring actually, these conspiracy theories, because they're so easy to solve. It's like,
once you allow yourself to see it, and that's really taking what I like to say, the headset off, because we're in denial for all kinds of reasons, because you don't want to go there, or you don't want to become socially, unaccepted, or it's too unbelievable, or you just don't have time, or you don't have the patience. I mean, whatever the reasons, there are many reasons, and I think we all had them at some point, and then we overcame them. And then once you're down one rabbit hole, then it opens the next and the next and the next. I mean, this really has been the story of my life for the last 10 years across all, including, you know, what I just talked about, the soul, is that all of the stuff, a lot of it is unbelievable until you have enough experiences or pointers when you say, okay, I mean, I don't know what is truth anyway. It's really hard to claim you know something with 100% certainty without a shadow of a doubt, because the human experience itself is full of conditioning, and, you know, all our beliefs are just beliefs. But for me, what's going down the rabbit hole means is questioning everything and then coming back with more clarity, because I've weighed things against each other. And what I realized, you come back off all of these rabbit holes is usually with the opposite than what you went down. It's really, and I think this is what's important, that we need to come back to very quickly. Otherwise, we're going to run this train of humanity against the wall. Is this willingness to question. Let's talk about science. I mean, talking about Corona and all of that for a second. Science is so dogmatic these days. We don't allow ourselves to really, it's not scientific what science does. It's like within a certain dogma, we do science, but we're not allowing ourselves to ask questions outside. When science, what it's actually meant to be, is like to go in and be open to any outcome, to any answer that we find. It's about finding the truth, not finding what I want to find.
Absolutely, mate. So at what point then did like you start looking into Bitcoin?
So I mean, it's a funny, like my first interaction or was with Bitcoin was in 2015. I was at an event called Summit in Utah, and I don't know how I got there. I mean, again, life is really incredible. Like, it takes you where you need to go, but we need to bring the awareness to be ready, because the signs are always there. But I might be, you know, looking at my phone instead of at the signs, or I might ignoring them. Anyway, so I end up there, and I don't think I was there necessarily for Bitcoin, but I found myself in a conversation. We were like three. There was Brock Pierce,
Really?
someone else, which I forgot his name, also an OG in the crypto space. And we just stood there, and that was the beauty about these events. Like, you know, you just had casual conversations, and I didn't know what the other two guys were. I was just hanging out with them and listening to the stories and they were talking about Bitcoin, and I found it interesting, but I didn't pay attention. You know, I didn't pay attention. And then 2 years later, in 2017, I was at another really small gathering in Turkey, and we were only like 15 people or 20, and there was an OG from the Ethereum space. He was working, was in the management of Consensus, I think. And he talked about Bitcoin, Ethereum. And I'm like, I looked at the price again, and I saw what happened since 2015. I'm like, God, you need to check that out. And so then I went to the rabbit hole, and I And I spent the rest of the year only looking at crypto. At that, I didn't call it Bitcoin because I didn't understand the difference yet. And I invested, I think I invested some money into Bitcoin, some money in Ethereum. And then I went into all the ICOs and I traded and I made a lot of money and then I lost the money and it kind of was wild. And then that was the year, right, when Bitcoin ran up from 2000. I bought at 2000 and it ran up to 19,000 something. And I remember Christmas, my parents, and I 10x'd and I thought, I'm a genius. I'm a genius. And then it collapsed. And I got really scared beginning of 2020 and I sold, I think, half of it for 6,000. Never sell your Bitcoin. Never, ever sell your Bitcoin. I would be sitting on a really nice island if I had, not done all the things that I've done, but it's part of the journey, I think. And again, just like with waking up and going down the rabbit hole, we all have to make this mistake. So don't blame yourself if you sold it. I sold it. We all did. We all, I played with leverage. I mean, everything in the book. You have to try it to know what not to do. And this is really what life is, to make a more general point. Well, life is all about learning. It's not about, oh, I should have done. No, we always do our best. We always do our best. And our job is just to continuously learn, not just intellectually, but really, that's what wisdom is. It's embodied knowledge. And then until we make the mistake again, and then maybe at some point we're ready to not make it again. And then the ride gets smoother and smoother as we learn. And anyway, so that was 2017. And then I was like, okay, because I was spending, for 1 year, I basically was only doing Bitcoin and trading mostly. It was trading into ICOs and trying, all of that stuff. And I was like, okay, this is not what my life is about. Just like I wasn't an investment banker. So I kind of stopped it and went back into my, questioning everything, consciousness journey, etc. And then, but I still had Bitcoins and some other stuff. And then I think it was beginning of 2020 and Corona happened. When
Were you still in New York?
No, I mean, I became a nomad and I lived in different places. And then I lived in Berlin and Barcelona and was nomadic for a year. And then I went back to London. And then Corona happened, beginning of 2020. And Bitcoin really, right, went really down. And so I paid attention again because I still had, money in it. Significant, actually. And I mean, I remember, I think it went down even to 4,000, right? Or something. And I was talking to a friend looking at the trading graph and I was thinking of, oh, shouldn't I take a levered position there? And I mean, again, I would have, in that moment, when you get it right, would have been a genius. Anyway, I was so scared, I didn't do it. And okay, what happened then? Yeah, and then I paid attention again to Bitcoin. And then I, again, took a whole year out and studying everything. And in that year, I realized shit coins. I sold everything else. I poured all my money into Bitcoin, and I actually did, and I did leverage, not in that perfect moment, and then also made a fortune, or I really turned a couple of 100,000 into millions, and then lost even more. And then did the same story again, and I think we talked about it in our.
That's where you must have come to the group and you were telling us about it. Yeah. So what happened? What kind of position did you have on?
I mean, I don't know whether I can talk about the numbers because it was so crazy. Because I started levering. I started taking a long levered position, right? And I don't know.
Just on an exchange, or did you have a special brokerage account?
No, on an exchange. Yeah, on an exchange. And I mean, at that point, you could take up to 100x leverage, right? I mean, I didn't. Right. I think you still can on some. So what does that mean, right? 100x leverage means I can take a position that's 100 times my equity. So let's say I have 1,000 in Bitcoin. I can take a $100,000 Bitcoin position. And that obviously the crazy thing, if it means, is if you have and I never did 100x, right? That's like you get a heart attack, because I took more a long view. My idea was like, okay, Bitcoin is here now. It will be a lot more worth in the future, which is true, and right, because I mean it sucks up all the world's money. What I didn't have the understanding that the extreme volatility, even basically, if I want to pat myself on the back, is like I was ahead of my time, and I believed I know where Bitcoin is going, and I still believe that, and I didn't appreciate that the rest of the world, so to speak, is still figuring out what it is. And so that creates these price drops, right? If we all agreed, the world, that Bitcoin is the future of money, it will be worth 10 million a coin now. But we know that's not the case. It's a progression. And so it basically the price run up, and I increased my leverage continuously until I had like, I mean, crazy number, a 10 million position in Bitcoin, even though obviously I didn't have 10 million. But I had this position, and then Elon Musk changed his opinion about it and tweeted, oh, the energy, Bitcoin is not good with energy or something. And then the price collapsed within days from 69,000 to 20,000. And I think I had my liquidation price just above that. I mean, and so what does that mean then, right? You not only lose the position that you have, and all the gains were gone, of course, but also the principal, the money I put in the first place was gone. And the failure was that, I mean, first of all, taking leverage is super risky, especially taking bigger leverage. But the most important is, if you ever choose to do something like that, and I'm not recommending it, it's about getting out, not getting greedy. Like the point is, it went up and up and up and up and up, and I felt like, oh, it's going to go to 100,000 to 200,000. I'm never going to undo the position. But it's important to then say, okay, I got a lot. Let me step out of the trade again. And that's what I couldn't do. It's like I saw the price tumbling, and I was like, no, but this is mine. This is mine. It was a lesson in greed, basically. I was like, okay, I'm genius, and I was insisting, and I didn't appreciate that the market had just completely turned. I was frozen, literally. And it's a profound lesson, and it's really interesting, because if I look at, okay, I'm jumping into another topic now, kind of a spiritual one. There's a system called gene keys, and it's a little bit like astrology, but it's a really profound system, and it's outside of maybe what we will talk about today. But if I look at mine, you can basically see the purpose of your life and your spiritual evolution in these keys. And one of my keys is the shadow is, so this thing I need to evolve from is greed. And when I do, it converts into aspiration, and how they explain it, and ultimately ascension. And there's a meaning behind all these words. But how he explains it, greed is simply aspiration without trust. So that's the evolution. Anyway, why am I putting that in context? Is because these things had to happen. I had to lose this money. I had to see it for what it is, how attached I am, and also understand the bigger context. Why, again, everything is there for a reason. Nothing in life is wasted. And so my parents, my families lost everything on both sides in the war. And so there's an anxiety embedded in my, even I would argue, DNA about not having enough, even though I never went through kind of this hardship myself. But it's encoded. We inherit things literally, like on an emotional basis, not just through direct actions for our parents, but also generationally. There's a saying, it filters through down 7 generations. And so then it's in our DNA. And that's when you go through a difficult experience, or one like this money, where I froze up, or where you get angry, when we have strong emotions, we can usually feel this stuff coming up, rising up in the body. And it's not intellectual. It's not it's so deeply encoded. And that's why it's also hard to heal these things. It's not just me realizing intellectually. The body needs time. The whole body is replenished every 7 years, means all cells are newly created. And each cell is imbued with kind of the state we're in when it's created. So every 7 years, we're a new human being. I mean, it's incremental, of course, but every 7 years, everything has been replaced. So, and that includes the trauma. It takes time to get out of the body. Like, only when I'm in a better state, the new cells will acquire that better state. And then only 7 years in that state, I will be kind of healed of that. And so these challenges we find ourselves in are often from these traumata or even generationally, and we're reliving them. And the point is to heal them, to move beyond them, to evolve out of them. So to put it in a bigger context, life is really like a massive mirror. All our relationships, our health, how we feel is just a mirror to ourselves to show us who we are. So when I feel poor, or I feel incapable, or I feel misunderstood, life will keep showing me that until I pull myself out of it. And that comes back again to the victim versus the creator. If I feel I'm the victim, I stay the victim. If I realize everything is happening for me, not to me, but for me and through me, then I'm empowered and I can really change my trajectory. I can say, okay, this is what's happened. This is my story. And now let me come out of this hole. Let's step out. Let's move beyond. And this is the power we all have. And this is really the power that's taken away from us through education, through the governments, etc. They're putting us in fear. They're putting us in like, oh, I need help. They're putting us in like, I'm not allowed to do this and this. They're telling us, what's healthy, what injection, we're all kept in fear and in like, they know the answer. And it's the opposite. Like, the most profound lesson in life is to understand that there is no external authority. There's only my inner authority for myself and yours for you. And I need to listen to myself. This is the most important lesson. Like, I can look around what everybody else is doing, but the most empowering lesson is to listen to myself, to my excitement, where things pull out. And then I can really express myself fully and authentically. And that's what we're all meant to do. We're all meant to be individuals, collaborating, but individuals. Like, I might want to be a musician, and then my parents say, no, you need to be a lawyer. No, if I feel, the Mozart wasn't told to be a lawyer. He wanted to play, and then he played, and he was a genius. We all have a genius inside of us, and our job is it's actually not even to discover, to recognize that genius and then to follow it through to the end.
And I've said this again on other podcasts. I believe entrepreneurship or creatorship, however you want to term it, is default in the human experience, and it is purposefully knocked out of us from the age of 3, 4, or 5, whenever you step across that threshold into the education system. And it's by design, because then you are dependent. And why do we call successful business entrepreneurs unicorns? That's another psyop, because these just 1 in a million. It's not for you, little bee worker. You'd never be able to create a company like that. It's only for the very, very outlandish few. It's such a freaking nonsense.
We're really, exactly. We're all meant to be entrepreneurs, I believe. And luckily now in these times,
problem-solving machines, as Jeff Booth would label a human being. Like, you are a problem-solving machine.
Yeah. And really, I mean, I think it was Ford who says, and together with Rockefeller, they completely rewrote the education system to what it is now. And there's a reason why it hasn't changed in 100 years, because it's not meant to change. And he said, we don't want thinkers, we want workers. That's why you have a bell in the school, and you have an authority figure in front, and you're meant to learn by heart, not critical thinking. It's all a purpose, because we're being prepared for the workforce, not for free thinkers and problem solvers.
Again, people are going to scream conspiracy theorist at you. So I'm going to actually read you from the Wikipedia page here. The General Education Board, which was founded in 1902 by a secret group of men that had a secret meeting about how to fund, in air quotes, the education system. Sound familiar to Jekyll Island kind of plan by any chance? Anyway, so this is how important it is to capture the education system. And it was funded by Rockefeller to the tune of $1 million in 1902. So, they own it, always have done. But the philosophy, this was written by I think the guy's name was Gates, who was implied, and no relation, believe it or not. I have delved in, but the Education Board, General Education Board, occasional papers #1, and this is the philosophy of the General Education Board, what they were actually trying to establish and to achieve. And it reads, and I'll just read the first couple of sentences. In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. That's the opening gambit of the philosophy of the General Education Board. And anybody can go and check that out. General Education Board, occasional papers #1. This isn't a conspiracy. This has been designed in such a manner.
Well, in a way, that is you can call it conspiracy, right? Like it's not a theory.
Yeah.
Like
that meeting they had
like
was a conspiracy. They conspired in a secret meeting, and then they said, okay, you fund it, and then we'll push it. And anyway, I want to get onto psychedelics, because this is something I keep bumping up against. I've had other people on the show. I know John Vallis, he goes down this rabbit hole very, very deeply. I've never done it. I've never hallucinated it or gone into any kind of
yeah.
I'm using the wrong language, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's not a hallucination. It's
right.
But I'll let you finish.
Okay. But I'm certainly interested in learning more about it. I still have, my fear barriers are up for whatever reason. I don't know. There's probably deep conditioning there. So yeah, what was your experience? How did you do it? Where did you go? What was, the tools you were using?
Yeah, I mean, it happened again, like so many things in my life, completely unplanned. I didn't say, oh, now I need to try psychedelics. And I guess at least maybe nowadays it's different because the word is out there and there's books out there and everybody's talking about it. But at that point, you didn't come across it except someone mentioned it to me. And I think it was at the beginning of my, what I mentioned, I had been kicked out of my company and I was trying to make sense of it all. And so I also started exploring okay, what's out there? I was really on an adventure. And one of the things is I went to my first, what I would now call spiritual retreat. And it was in Bali. And it had nothing to do with psychedelics. It was meditation and kind of just, changing the relationship with yourself or exploring the relationship with yourself. And then at the end of the retreat, and I think this was beginning of 2016, some people are saying, oh, we're going to do ayahuasca. And I had somehow maybe heard, or maybe I haven't. And I asked, oh, what is this? And I mean, curious me, I am an explorer. So I was like, okay, I'm in, I join. And I trusted the people. I think this is always important when exploring, that you have people you trust and relate to. And I was like, okay, if they're doing it, I'm going to do it. And so I just did it, and that was my first experience.
Let's not skip over that, because what as far as I know, it's a root of a tree or something that gets back. How do you take it, and what setting were you in?
Yeah, it's two plants that grow in the Amazon, and they're mixed. And one contains, actually all plants contain DMT, but what happens is the stomach breaks it down immediately, so you never get the experience. So this plant has especially, I think, a lot of DMT, and then the other plant is an inhibitor who makes sure that protein that breaks it down in your stomach doesn't break it down. So it's inhibiting the breaking down. So thereby it then is absorbed by your stomach. So it's a liquid. It tastes awful. It looks like shit, or maybe not like shit, but it tastes like shit. It's really not pleasant. And that's also, maybe let me go one step back. Something I realized along my journey, because this is a drug. And drugs are bad for you. What I realized is there's different drugs. There's drugs that are that push you down, that are depressants, like alcohol. Then there's drugs that are activating you, like cocaine. And then there's drugs that are so-called hallucinants, or let me call them psychedelic. I don't like the word hallucinant because I'll get to that in a second. They're psychedelics, and they actually open your mind. They're expanding you temporarily. And so for me, these are, and actually also, obviously cigarettes and coffee, everything that alters, actually even the food we eat is a drug in a sense, because it alters our chemical, chemicals in the brain and impacts us. So what we classify as good and bad, or what is legal and illegal, is not good and bad. And I think this is also a rabbit hole in itself. Just because something is legal, it's not good, and something is illegal, not bad. And it's the same with drugs. We put them all, at least that's what I've been, because until age, I think I was 37 at that age, I'd never taken anything. So for me, I wasn't like in that world. And then that experience opened my mind. I said like, wow, that's incredible. Actually, no, sorry. I realized I took something before that ayahuasca experience, which was at a concert a few years before, when a friend of mine said, oh, do you want some, I think it was ecstasy or so. And ecstasy contains MDMA, and MDMA opens the heart. And so you feel incredible love. It's actually not, strictly speaking, a psychedelic, because it just changes it doesn't really create any hallucinations, so to speak. Anyway, what I in that experience found, I felt so much love, and I was so happy that, and I think all of us, we were like 4 people, we ended up at home on a bed together, and I was laughing. I said, like, with this, the world needs less beds. Because you kind of huddle together. Like, for me, I started talking to everybody at that party, because I felt friendly and connected with everybody. It's a very connecting experience. So that opened my mind to that drugs are not all equal. Just like everything else, right? You can go to McDonald's, or you can have like organic food. It's not the same. It's both called food, but so one is good and one is bad for you. And the same applies to drugs. So there's this stigma around. So anyway, so little by little, I again crushed down an old belief I had, that I believed this was bad and you don't do that, etc. And in the process, I realized the incredible power of these substances. Again, there's 2 ways of, I'm talking psychedelics specifically, not all the other drugs. There's 2 ways of doing them: recreational, for fun, or ceremonial, with a deeper purpose, where you're very focused and you go inside. Again, 2 very different experiences. And so what I'm focused in and interested in is the kind of, ceremonial setting, which is the healing setting. And luckily, it's also being recognized in mainstream, right? We have ketamine clinics, and things are being legalized, and there's a lot of stuff happening. It's not this kind of underground topic anymore. Everybody's talking about it. Companies obviously want to make money with it. It's getting commercialized, etc. So anyway, this was my beginning into it. And then along the journey, I had some of the most incredible experiences, which then led me to the statement earlier that I made. And I've written about all of them actually publicly. It led me to the statement I made earlier that, we are not our body and mind, because I experienced it. And not just once, but in several ways and in different formats. And then again, just like Bitcoin or any other topic we discussed today, at some point, the evidence is, even though as unbelievable it sounds, the evidence is so overwhelming that I realized, okay, I am not my body, and I'm not going to die. I was actually never born. I just entered the body, right? My consciousness entered the body, and at some point it leaves it again. And so when you then, that, as hard for my mind as I'm talking at it, it's really hard to comprehend still till this day, until I have an experience again, and I'm like, okay, I remember. But that then reshifts one's life's perspective completely, because suddenly you realize you're not playing a finite game. Yes, in this body it's finite, and you're playing for something else. It's not about getting as much for myself, but there's a much bigger mission unfolding. And then you also start understanding the context of the trauma and all the challenges in life. They serve a bigger purpose, right? Think about it like, what is the strongest thing that helps us to evolve? It's resistance, it's pain, it's because then we are forced to make a change. When everything is smooth, there is no evolution. And so life grows as it's challenged. And so these spiritual experiences, psychedelic experiences, for me are spiritual experiences. They help me understand that, and put in context what I learned from other people and what you can also read in spiritual texts, that the purpose of life is not the kind of rational purpose or the mental or the educated purpose, like, which is like, okay, get a house, get a family, build a nice life, don't bump into many walls. The people who have done that most successfully, right? People who have really taken it very far, like they have everything, the Bill Gateses and Jeff Bezoses of the world, they are no more happy than other people. Sometimes they're deeply more unhappy than others. And then they start having these kind of all weird ideas that we talked about earlier. Because why is that? Because fulfillment doesn't come by having a lot of things. The soul has a much more deeper yearning, which is a specific path of evolution. And all the obstacles, all the traumata that we have in life are uniquely created for us, by us, to evolve beyond that. So that brings me back to the point of everything you experience in life and everything you see and perceive in life is you showing yourself so you can evolve beyond it. It's a real mindfuck. And I think Matrix, kind of the movie, kind of shows it in a way powerfully. Like there is another level, not just from the kind of how we are portrayed the world works, but then there's even a higher level. Like even, once you went down all the rabbit holes and you saw how the system works and the indoctrination, all of that, there's another level, life itself, how life itself plays out.
So now we can move, I hope, to talking about the land that you want to buy in Portugal, because as far, the conversations that we had in Madeira, as fun as they were always short, right? Because there was a lot going on, a lot of people milling around, great conference, incredible vibe, right? I'm sure you felt the energy there, and to be around a bunch of Bitcoiners. Was that the first time you've ever been to like that actually, highly concentrated amount of Bitcoiners?
It was actually my first Bitcoin conference. Even though, I mean, obviously I've been in the space for a while, but it was my first. I wanted to go to Miami. I think it was in 2020, but then Corona happened and he couldn't fly. So that was that. And then obviously I also shifted my focus away a little bit from Bitcoin, because not everything is Bitcoin, at least not for my personal journey. And but then I don't know where I saw it. I think Obi said he's going to Madeira, and then I looked up and I saw everybody is going to Madeira, all the OGs. It was really, I mean, let's stay here for just a minute. It was really incredible, because I think it was the best conference I could have gone first, because everybody was there, or literally everybody who matters in Bitcoin was there. And at the same time, it's a very small conference. So I actually had conversations with everybody. I had conversations with Jeff Booth. I had conversations with Michael Saylor, John Vallis, Obi, like incredible. Like, and with Michael, I have a video of talking with Michael and asking him, what could make, where does he see the challenge of Bitcoin failing? And I don't think he liked the question, but he entertained me for 12 minutes on the topic. And that was incredible. Like, where do you get access to people so easily, right? It was a beautiful experience. And of course, then also with Bitcoin going up, on the price going up, like during these days, like incredibly, it was it's nice to be in a bull market type of conference rather than the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so great. But then you were telling me about this project that you're focusing on now, and that came full circle. That was the first time we got to meet each other in real life, and we hadn't even spoken to each other for. And you came up to me like, "Remember me?" I'm like, "What the hell are you like? This is amazing." How you? And then Coach Carbon was there as well, part of our original group. So three of us, and we were selfieing ourselves onto that group that we'd spent time with back in 2020 and 2021. And yeah, you laid out what your next project is. So tell us what's going on, because it's pretty exciting. And the link to the video, hopefully you can send me that again so I can post that in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, we saved what I believe the best for last. And I would call it not my next project, but maybe my final project, or the project, capital T. Because it's really the synthesis of my life, and especially the last 10 years of trying to understand everything. It really brings everything together in a physical place. So what is it? It's a 410 hectare piece of land. So that's 2 by 2 kilometers or 1,000 acres. So it's a really big piece of land, and it's beautiful. And it's 75 minutes outside of Lisbon, towards the east, towards Spain, in the middle of nowhere, but still very close to Lisbon and the airport. And it's a beautiful land with lakes, with cows, with some buildings. And the vision is to build a village for, I say, 1,000 people, but TBD, how many people will be there, for a new way of being. And what does that mean? It's about bringing a lot of the themes we discussed today. Actually, it's perfect. We talk about it at the end because it's really also the synthesis from our conversation. The idea is to create a place for a new way of being. What does that mean? A free place where we thrive, where we evolve, where we heal. So, and where we have our own school, where we have a cutting-edge well-being center, where we have a resort for people to come through transformative experiences, where we have residences, where we have our own water, power, we grow our own food. So we really combine the best practices, but still have a completely modern life, right? We're going to have a Starlink connection, I assume, and, stuff like that. So it's not a hippie, it's not a commune, it's not alternative. It's about bringing the best together. And I think this is really also, again, a reflection of my journey, right? From investment banking, kind of this tough environment and rational, boom, 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 and numbers driven, to the spiritual path I've been on. And then, also with the Bitcoin exploration, all of that. I mean, we will mine Bitcoin there because we will use it to heat and, maybe even for the greenhouses. So I'm really trying to bring all of the best together. And the idea is not just to provide a transformation space for people to come through. And this is what we'll start with, like transformative experience. We're redeveloping the existing buildings into a 35-bedroom hotel, and we create a well-being center. So at the beginning, there will be no residences, because I also believe communities need to grow organically rather than putting them on a plan. Because why would someone move there right now? You don't know how it's going to be. So the idea is to experience it and then have more and more. And then at some point, people start building houses. And the other thing is for people to come through and experience there's a better way, and then to take it home and then implement it. Whether it's Bitcoin mining and heating, or it's about growing your own food. We'll have courses there. We'll have, lectures, experiences, and it will be a living thing. It's not going to be like Burning Man, where you build something artificial. I mean, I think Burning Man is incredible, but it's a utopia that doesn't work, right? Because it's built up artificially for a week and a huge amount of money is put in. It's not sustainable, even though everything at Burning Man is free. But by the way, that's also an incredible experience to go through, but that's another topic. So anyway, the village, and we, we have our own food. We grow. We have our own electricity. We're completely independent, but still completely connected to the outside world. Yet, if there's another lockdown or anything like that, we can completely, we are completely self-sufficient. We don't need a single thing to be brought to us because everything is there. And also the people that provide services, they, can decide to live there. The person that repairs the house or, the farming, all of it is there. And the beauty about it is as well, we can experience it ourselves, right? We can not only eat the food that's grown there, we can also learn how to grow food, and we can even pluck our own food and do gardening if you like, or not. It's not an obligation, right? In that sense, it's not a commune, and it's also not an intentional community, because all of these things fail when you artificially try to push something onto people. The idea is here to create really a base layer, to put it into Bitcoin language, like the layer one, and then things are built on top of it. People come with their own ideas, etc. And it's the only thing that brings everybody together is like, let's do things collaboratively, let's do them better, let's create a thriving, healthy world. So literally bringing together all of the topics we talked about today. And we're really advanced in the process of acquiring the land. There's already architects working in master planning, where we work with one of the best in the world, Australian guy, Jeff Lawton. So the idea, again, is to bring in the best people to create an incredible project. And what we are now in the process is raising the money. Like, maybe there's a Bitcoiner who wants to build a Citadel. So
right.
And
back to Lauren's original question, what is a Citadel?
Exactly.
This sounds like
exactly. We're
so
raising the Citadel.
How did you find the land? How did this one land on your lap? There's got to be a story there, a serendipitous.
I mean, that's again, that's also a recurring theme in my life, and I think in everybody's life once we pay attention, and also in our conversation, that it was serendipity. Like I had the vision first time 8 years ago for something like that. A place where, you know, beautiful place where we learn and evolve together and live together. And then, but it felt like a crazy idea. And then 2 years ago, it popped back into my mind, and the term came to me, NEOSLIFE. That's what the project called. And NEOSLIFE, you might think, comes from Neo, Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's the life of Neos, red pill, waking up. And it's true. That's part of what the project is about, or it reflects what the project is about. But the name came actually from somewhere else. It's a coincidence. It came from New Earth Operating System, NEOS.
Okay. NEOS.
And neos.com was taken. So I took neos.life as a domain, and that became NEOSLIFE. And funnily, it also means Neo, the life of Neos. And Neo also means new. But that wasn't my intention. And that's how crazy, how crazy it is. Anyway, when I came up with that, I was thinking of an app or, you know, something to help us to evolve. Started working with a developer and then realized it's not it. It's not ready. And then fast forward 5 months ago, end of October, 23rd of October last year, I stand at the airport. I just had a spiritual immersion weekend. I got my Kriya Yoga initiation in Vienna. And I was at the airport, and I was the second last in line to board a plane. And next to me stood a girl, the last person in line. And suddenly she says, her name is Marie, and she says, "Are you Vincent?" And I look at her, I don't know her. And I say, "Yes, do I know you?" And she said, "No, but I'm reading your newsletter where I'm writing about all these experiences and visions and ideas and psychedelics and Bitcoin and the stuff I'm learning." And she said, "I love your newsletter. It has really helped me, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, that's really nice. Thank you." And then I was like, and that's what I'm talking about. Life sends us signals. We just need to wear. Normally, I could have just gone back to my phone and said, "Okay, nice meeting you. Have a nice day." But I kept asking her, "Why did we meet? Why did we meet?" And I was doing a psychedelic retreat shortly after. And I said, "Oh, maybe you need to come to the retreat." And she ended up actually coming to the retreat. But I kept insisting, maybe that's not the reason why. And at some point, she asked me, "What's your vision?" And I told her about NEOSLIFE. And then she takes out a picture on her phone and shows me that she has a village concept as well, like as her vision of, you know, living healthily and happily together, kind of. It's a different vision, but very similar. And then she said, and I said, "Wow, what are the chances? What are the chances you meet someone random at an airport? My newsletter is read by 2,000 people, of which most people I know because I met them at some point in my life. So what are the chances I'm meeting a stranger who's reading my newsletter that stands next to me in line and has a similar vision for life?" Anyway, so I keep asking her, and then she said, "What do you need, like, to make it happen?" I said, "Oh, I'm not actively working on it, but I guess we need to start with the land." And she told me, "Okay, I'll find it." And 3 days later, she calls me, and 5 days later, we're on the land. And it's actually the only land I ever looked at in person. And I walk on it, and I'm saying, "This is it. It's perfect." And not only that, one of my now listeners gonna think I'm completely crazy and will discount everything I said before. And again, I have to put it in a context. I used to not believe in any of this type of stuff, but one of my spiritual teachers and guides told me that the land I will build on, because I occasionally looked at land and showed her and shared a link. She said, "No, it's none of these. Your land is beautiful and has big stones." So when I drive onto the land for the first time, it has big, massive stones in it, like 3-meter stones. And I'm like, fuck me, excuse my English. Like, you know, what are the chances? All these synchronicities. So then it was clear to me. And then in the following weeks, all kinds of people, as I'm embarking, I said, "Okay, I guess we're going with it." But I had no plan or nothing yet. So, I mean, I just had a vision. And so we're going with that. And then all kinds of people come into my life supporting me in making it happening, from real estate experts to, again, like, I'm learning as I'm going. I'm in an entrepreneurial journey again, just like when I was in Brazil, when I didn't have a clue about anything, what I was doing. And I learned. In the end, I had a venture capital funded company. And here it's the same process again. I'm using all what what I learned in my process to come up with this vision, and now manifesting it, so to speak, in reality, grounding it in reality. And it's happening. And yeah, it's just been an incredible story. Sometimes I have to, pinch myself and think like, how did that all happen, right? And that's the beauty, that's the gift about life, is like, we don't need to force things. Things are meant to happen when they're ready. I had the vision for this for a long time, and now it's ready, and it happened. I didn't even look for it. I wasn't forcing it. I wasn't controlling it. And that's really the message also for myself, like to keep surrendering to the process, to its unfoldment. And yeah, and so we're doing a retreat, a psychedelic retreat, a really special one with really incredible facilitators in a format that we haven't done before, on the land in well, I don't know when you're going to air this, but on the 10th to the 14th of April. And it's going to be specifically for people who are interested in supporting this project financially, because we need to make it all happen, right? It's if this resonates with you, the listener, then yeah, please reach out to me. We'll put it in the show notes. It's going to be an incredible experience in itself. And the main focus of this experience is going to be your own transformation. Like that's what you're coming from, to have, incredible experience with incredibly gifted facilitators. It's going to change your life. I have no doubt about it. It's also an invitation. I'm inviting 8 participants onto the land. And of course, the purpose is to get to know the project and to experience the land, and then thereby know, as you come out of the weekend, whether this is for you or not.
Questions. Okay. So did you say 8 participants? Is that the...
Yeah, up to 8. Yeah.
Up to 8 participants, right. So you'll be there. There'll be some facilitators as well.
Yeah, will be 9 facilitators.
How many?
9.
9. Okay, so 1 per person, and like...
No, that's not... one idea is that no one ever needs to be alone, but it's also just practically, because we have the different medicines facilitators. We have someone doing energetic massages. We have someone teaching meditation. We have me, and we have someone other like providing guidance. We have someone cooking, someone for yoga. So the whole team.
So what would... Okay, people are going to be interested, so I'll get this out before this date. What would
that would be amazing.
First of all, what would the price be for somebody to come along for it's a 4-day event by the looks of things? Yeah, 10th to the 14th. So, well, I guess 3 days, and then the day that you leave.
No, actually, it's even 5 more, right? Because you arrive on the 10th, and 4 days. You're right. Yeah, okay, you're right. All right. 4 days actually. Yeah. Well, it's my gift. People will be invited to make a contribution, because obviously there's significant costs involved and a lot of time and effort. But that, I don't want that to hold anybody back. I mean, obviously this event is targeted at people who have the potential to invest into the land, a significant amount. So this retreat is specifically, and that's how I will select the participants, like who is most relevant for unfolding of the vision. But I don't want it. For me, this is not to make money. Like, this is for me to make the vision happen. And so I'm inviting to this retreat. And then you are invited to, make a contribution if it really, if you really felt it had a deep impact on you, which I have no doubt it will.
Amazing. Okay. So then I'm thinking, if the right people, so I see your plan is very, very clever, I suppose, or, if the people there feel the vibe, see the initiative, see the project, see how it unfolds, see how it affects, the lives of many, not just their own families going forward, because they might be looking to move and relocate, or at least have some kind of base to go to if and when we ever get locked down again. What kind of investment do you think you need, and what kind of investment do you think would be minimum for somebody that would be looking to partner with you in this, and what do they get from that investment? All the practical kind of questions that any Shark Tank guy would ask you.
Yeah, totally. I think these are very, very relevant questions. So the initial investment we are looking for is 5 million to acquire the land and do some initial works. And then there will be more to kind of redevelop the buildings later in the year. But this initial amount is 5 million now. I've already invested 300,000 myself into the project, including making a deposit for the land. And so that's the amount we're looking for over the next couple of months. And so the criteria for the participant will be, you know, who can contribute it. And I'm not looking only at, you know, how much money can you bring. The question is also how aligned are you with the project? I mean, the people that will come to the specific retreat will need to have the ability and at least the willingness to consider investing. That's the whole point of this specific retreat on this land, etc., and in this setup. And I don't have a specific threshold. You know, initially I thought you need to invest at least 1 million to willing to invest in 1 million. But now I'm like, okay, let's see who applies, so to speak, who wants to come. And then it's purely merit based. If it feels right, it feels called, if it feels aligned, and it maybe that person doesn't have money, but it can bring the money. Like, who knows? I'm against surrendering. I don't want to create any hard rules. It's just we have 8 spots, and it will be the, you know, what I believe the 8 most relevant people. And of course, they also need to want to go through this experience. You can also invest in a project without coming to the retreat, but it will give you, I think, an incredible view on the team, on the people, on the space itself, which is obviously a core part of it. And then the experience itself will just be life-changing. And I think the beauty about such an experience is you will come out of it and you will know whether you want to be part of the project or not. And I'm not saying it will be a yes or a no. It just, you will know. The clarity after these type of experience is just like through the roof. And so, and then all the details about, you know, how is the investment going to be structured, etc. That's another conversation. But my idea is here for the participant to have a profound life-changing experience for themselves, irrespective of the project. And then in that context, in that light, they will see whether this is something that calls them. And they will also have experience, you know, a whole team taking care of them and what's possible. You know, this is what we're, you know, the land actually is not married to psychedelics or so. That's not what the vision is about. Though I believe there's a really powerful place in the world for this type of experience. But what we are creating, including the Wellbeing Center, is not related to psychedelics. It's really about holistic understanding of body, mind, and soul. And so it's a very unusual way to fundraise, but nothing about this project is usual in a good way. And so
will you have a structured program? Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, it will I can run you very, very quickly through. I mean, people will arrive Wednesday afternoon. We'll have a get together, you know, meeting each other and dinner, very relaxed. And then on Thursday, people will go through an experience that's called the Toad, or Bufo Alvarius, or some people call it 5-MeO-DMT. And we can link also, I've written about my own experience with this, can link to that. And that's the experience where I left my body and I realized it's the strongest psychedelic there is. And that's also the retreats we held last year with the same facilitators. And it's just, I mean, John is a former, I mean, we have also incredible people. So for those that feel called and to this type of experience and our potential investors, this is like, I cannot think of a better setup. And I'm not saying that because it's my setup, not at all, but like John, who we've been working since last year, he has done 12,000 processes. He has done this 12,000 times for people. And he is not just that, he has also traditional medical training. He used to be a psychiatrist in Manhattan. And he realized he was doing more harm than good as a psychiatrist by giving people drugs. And then he discovered this. And now he's, you know, whatever you want to call that, a shaman or a guide. And that's what he does. And he's, you know, every process is so incredibly profound. Yeah, it's like, since we've been doing these retreats last year together, like I've been witnessing many people go through it, not just myself. And it's just beautiful. You need to be ready for it in a sense of, I mean, there's nothing that
that was going to
readiness for
be
it.
my question for anybody listening.
So,
That what happens for those people if they come in and then get cold feet at that moment and you're like, actually, I don't want to go.
We never had that, because if you got cold feet, because I'm talking about first day, which is Bufo, which is is a very fast experience. It's between 10 and 30, 40 minutes. Your perception of it will be completely different. Some people say they were gone for seconds, others say they were gone for hundreds of years. So it's very, it's really nothing compares to this. It will be the biggest adventure you've ever been on. So if you got cold feet, when you're already there, then that's not a problem, because someone will go first. And there's always someone who's happy and wants to go first, because also you are not really allowed to eat before. So some people are hungry and they want to go first. So that always solves itself. And then you will see people go through it. And then you will have the confidence to also go through it, because you come out of this psychedelic very quickly. The experience is extremely profound, but it's like, I like to say, it's like a rocket. You take off and then you very quickly also back to the ground. And you could technically, drive a car again an hour later. So they will see, people that have doubts will see coming people back and see they're okay. And they will see their energy, how they light up and how happy and calm and peaceful they are. So that will give them confidence to always, to also go. And for people generally, what I'd like to say generally, considering this type of experience, and I'm talking now psychedelics across the board, is you will be shown a truth, whatever your truth is, whatever you need to see. As they say also in these circles, you don't get what you want, you get what you need. And so it will be an amplification of life. That's how I perceive these things. It will be 10x or 100x the message that, you might be getting in a very subtle way through life. And it can be very beautiful and peaceful, or it can be very, challenging. But you will be fine. That's the first thing. You'll be fine. Either way, it will be an experience. However, if you decide to go through such an experience, you should be willing, or you need to be willing to then take that information and do something with it later. Because as you come back, your life will not have changed. You will have changed, but your life will not have changed. But maybe what you realized, or very likely what you realized, is that there are certain changes you need to make to life to improve your life. So it's all for you. It's in benefit of you, but you need to be willing. And some people are just not willing. They don't want to change anything. They want the psychedelic to solve everything for them, but that's not how it works. The psychedelic is, I like to say, it's just opening the curtain. It's like you're in a closed house and all the curtains are closed and you've been thinking this is reality. And then the psychedelic opens the curtain and you say, oh my God, there's an outside and I can go outside the house and there's nature and there's other people and other things. So basically it's like a planetary window opening, and then it closes again after the experience. I mean, you will remember the experience, but the window is closed again. Your human normal self again. And then, but you have learned something and it will change you forever. And now you have to use that to make changes. And sometimes it can mean radical changes, like changing your job or your relationship, or, or finally, overcoming that procrastination or having that difficult conversation that you never. And if you're not willing to do that, actually life can get more challenging, because now you are more aware. Yeah, you've been woken up. It's a bit like the Plato's cave allegory. You have been out of the cave, and now you're going back and looking at the shadow dances. So I would say, and this is also what will support everybody subsequently, which has always been very important, which is often forgotten in psychedelic experiences, is to the integration. The actual work starts afterwards. We will start that. So we will have 2 one-day experiences. I mean, what I just described is one, and then which is just an hour actually for each participant. And then on the next day, we'll have called something that's the heart protocol. It's a combination of ketamine and MDMA. It's incredible. And the beauty, it's an incredible journey. Both of them are among the most profound experiences of my life. And I think I had many. And it's the beauty about both these medicines is both of them are given to you by doctors by training. Both are psychiatrists by training. They used to work in the traditional system in both cases. They all come specifically from the US for this event. They're all extremely gifted and passionate and beautiful souls. And also these 2 experiences specifically are as I said, in Bufo, you come out of it and you immediately fully functional again. I mean, you will not want to go and run around like because you're in a different state, but you can drive a car. And, you know, if the house would be burned down, you could use the fire extinguisher. Everything is working. And the beauty about both of these medicines, the other one is a longer process. It's a 3 to 6 hour journey. And it's I like to say the Bufo is like a rocket ship. It goes up and comes down very quickly again. And this one is more like a high-speed plane. It takes off, it goes up, and then kind of tapers off again. It's more like a wave. But they're very different and they're extremely complementary. And it's this combination. I'm really excited because we haven't done, this is the first time we bring both of these facilitators into one retreat. So it's a real special treat for the participants. And anyway, these are the first 2 days. And then the rest of the weekend is dedicated for you to let it sink it in. And we have this whole team and this whole incredible space and environment to really ground yourself and kind of make a plan. What does it mean for your life? How are you going to be different on, well, not just on Monday, like immediately, but with your family, with your friends, in your relationship, with your money, with your struggles, with your addictions, whatever it is that is currently challenging you, or wherever you might not have any challenges, although I think most of us have, but whatever your next step is in life and the next step up. And then I will accompany people the following weeks and months and days personally, as much or as little as they want, like the support. And that's what's called integration, like, because you have this otherworldly experience and then there's life here, like, you know, the daily, including I need to pay the bills, etc. Like there's a reality here. You have to take care of your family, all of this stuff. So how to bridge these two, that's what's called integration. And that is often forgotten. People have this experience and they think, oh, it's all going to help. I'm going to do this and this, and then I'm going to be healed. Or I'm going to have all the answers. No, the challenge is then how to bring that understanding into everyday life. And this is the work that starts after. And we will be supporting everyone as much as they want.
And everybody gets a room each in the beautiful building, and right.
Yeah, it's actually, that's why I'm excited. They will be on the land where we're building this vision. And it's actually currently it is a hotel at the moment, but it's a very simple hotel. I mean, you're not coming there. Past retreats we have done in beautiful places, beautiful as in like luxury. And here it will be more rustic because that's the current state of the building before the refurbishment, but it's all clean. And I mean, you're in the most beautiful environment in nature with cows in front of your window. But you don't come there to have a 5-star hotel experience. You come there for the transformation journey, the people, the project, the land. And I can promise you, I know this with near godly certainty that you will not care at all about your room, even though it's it's going to be a nice room, but it will not matter because the experience you go through is what will keep your mind busy.
Sounds amazing, mate. Okay, so the website, where do people go and throw their hat in the ring if they want to come?
Let's put I just published an article this morning actually about it, so we'll share the link to that. It's called Unleash True Greatness, and also there's a website for the project overall, and there's also a link to the retreat, which is called neos.life. Or you can put neoslife.com, both work. So that's neos.life. And then they can message me on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. I'm everywhere. And yeah, I mean, if you really resonated with this, you, the listener, resonated with this conversation or anything you heard, or you want to learn more, or maybe you're not an investor, but maybe you know an investor, or you are not an investor and you don't know an investor, but you want to be part of this project. I mean, there's a million things that need to be done. You feel resonance with what we are creating, then please reach out. Yeah, I'm at Vincent, so that's Vincent at neos.life. We can also put that in the show notes. God, you have to put a lot in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, mate.
I'll send you a few links.
This is a good one. All right, okay. So let's wind it up because whoa, this is a long one, but we've done a great
We
job.
covered a lot. We covered a lot.
Right. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give that to and why?
Oh, I forgot that you always ask this question. I didn't prepare this one. The orange pill. Yeah, I would like to give it to the person who can change the, either to a president or maybe, I don't know, he just popped into my mind. I would like to give it to, I forgot his name, but the president of the Bank for International Settlement.
Yeah,
Like the
okay.
the
Augustus
beast.
Carstens, the final
Yeah,
boss.
yeah.
The big
I
fat
think he
dude.
needs he needs some other pills as well, or maybe less pills. I don't know, but yeah, this one I think would be a powerful one for him, a life-changing one. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks, mate, for coming on and sharing
Thank you for
everything that
having
you have today. Deeply personal stuff as well. The plebs really, connect with all that kind of stuff, and I hope people reach out. It sounds amazing what you're going to do. Yeah, I might even try and sidle down there myself. Who knows?
Yeah, you should come either whether for the retreat or not, like to just see, like maybe just one more last reflection, like I've been really touched by, and for me it's the same. I've been on the land now 8 times, I think. Every time I'm there and every time I'm bringing someone to there and they have seen the video or whatever pictures before, and then they're actually on it and they look at me and they say like, okay, I get it. And I actually had someone, whether you believe this or not, and in the stuff or not, I had someone doing energetic analysis with like a pendulum remotely. I don't know how it works. It was recommended. And they said like the healing energy is off the chart, and you can really feel it, right? The difference. You're on it and you feel something here. So I hope many people, not just for the retreat, but as we develop the village, will have an opportunity to come through and experience its beauty.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, mate. And yeah, thanks for coming to find me in Madeira. That was
Daniel,
a
thank you
great
for having
surprise.
me.
And we just dropped out there. So we'll just say goodbye. It's held out there. The internet's held out this whole time. So perfect. But yeah, thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You too.